Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of JKLMedia, where three longtime friends visit about geeky stuff. I am one of your hosts, Jesse. Joining me, as always, is Lou
Hello, everyone.
and the podcast mom, Karen.
Hello.
And we are taking a break from going through Babylon 5 in chronological order, and we are doing as we often do, where we take turns picking something fun to revisit, often where either none of us have watched it or some of us has watched it, and it's my turn, and I decided that I wanted to go back to HBO Max. At the time, it wasn't just Max, it was HBO Max, of Watchmen, Damon Lindelof's series that is a spiritual sequel to the comic book and slightly to the movie. And so both Lou and Karen were say, sure, we're welcome to do that. So that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss a couple episodes each week. We're going to start with episode 1 and 2. It's summer and we're running out of ice and martial feats of Comanche horsemanship. They have really fun titles on this.
hmm
So I thought we'd start out with Karen, tell me your background of the comic and the movie and then possibly the series.
Okay, as you guys know, the audience as well, I'm a huge comic book geek. I read Watchmen when it came out in installments. It was a episodic comic book. And then even though I had purchased all of those, I liked it enough that I bought the trade. I go back and forth with Alan Moore. He is not always my favorite, but I thought with Watchmen and V, he did an impressive job with both of those stories. I got distracted with the pirate stuff in the first iteration. And I actually liked the movie where a lot of people didn't. I thought it was a good interpretation. They can't do like the Sandman did. It was a mini series, so they had the luxury of all that time. They really just in a movie couldn't redo all of Watchmen. So I was happy with where it went. And when this came out on, I think it was a Cinemax show, wasn't it? But I was subscribed to HBO Max. I don't know. Was it HBO or was it Cinemax? I know I'm being pedantic here.
It was HBO.
Okay, HBO. I watched the first episode. I remember watching it. I didn't absorb all of it. So watching it again, I got most of it back. You know what I mean? I absorbed the whole episode and then I dropped it. And for the life of me, I don't know why I did, because it is really good. So that's my background on the show and the movie and the comic. And I don't think there was anything else, was there? There's other spin-offs of the comic and movies and comics and stuff like that, but I never got into any of that. That doesn't really interest me. But the original comic I thought was stellar.
All right. And Lou, how about you?
I read the trade graphic novel, so I didn't read it in installments like Karen did. I also watched the movie, and I think the first 20 minutes of that movie really capture the spirit of the graphic novels quite well. But then, depending on your sensibilities, the Zack Snyderisms creep into the style of the film. And I think my biggest disappointment with his interpretation was he made what were ordinary people seem like they were actually like all superheroes, like that they had abilities beyond normal people, which in the graphic novel they didn't for the most part, except for certain characters, obviously. I've got mixed feelings about it. I do like the messaging of the story. And I'm glad they dropped the giant squid in the movie version because that was just over the top. But you can get away with that in a comic book, and you can't in a movie, I don't think. So from that perspective, yeah. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very unique and bold vision of a graphic comic book series that you don't see very often. Swung for the fences and got pretty close, I think, in most aspects. So I recognize its importance in the graphic novel comic book hierarchy. And so when you recommended this series, which I'd heard about when it came out, but for some reason I just never got around to watching it, I was very glad that we got this opportunity to finally sit down and watch this series. And that's pretty well where I come into this series at.
So I, like Karen, remember reading it one episode at a time, and it was one of the first series where I had to go back and reread every episode when the new one came out. That
Yeah.
was unusual for me. And I remember being struck by the denseness of the series. And I am to this day. I remember when the movie was going to come out, I read, and there was a series, the annotated Watchmen, that you could go and look to everything. One of the things I like about the series is that if you want to just read it directly as a murder mystery, political satire, whatever it is, you can without trying to go into the depths of everything else they're trying to show, or you can go into this really the minutia of everything building in.
Yeah, you can
Um,
fall into a rabbit hole or
yeah,
you can stay on top looking at the rabbit.
yeah, exactly. I enjoyed the movie. I was ecstatic to see it. Went and saw it 3 or 4 times in the theater just because I felt like they had so much done correctly that there were things that I didn't think would happen. Rorschach in the jail or some of the other scenes that were iconic. I do think it's a fair criticism, Lou, that because of the nature, all these quote unquote costumed heroes, superheroes, all look like they had superpowers because of their super strength or their agility or everything versus just being a normal person. I thought great casting and a lot of fun. I was ecstatic because I've never fallen off the Lost bandwagon. I was happy with the series. I was happy with the ending. I
Same.
realized it wasn't perfect, but I
Same.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I really liked The Leftovers. In fact, I thought
Mm.
the second or third season of The Leftovers actually improved on the first and was a really well done story exploring a lot of different, and that was a great ending of The Leftovers. So I was curious to see what Damien was going to do. There, I recommend highly the HBO official mini podcast where he and the creator of Chernobyl, that
Okay.
HBO series, host the podcast, and they cover 3 episodes at a time. You have to
Of
worry about being
Watchmen, right?
of Watchmen. You have
Okay.
to worry about spoilers. But Damon was saying that he was offered to do Watchmen 3 separate times by HBO. And the first 2 times he had turned them down. And then the third one, he started thinking and he had an idea for a story. And I can't give you that idea because it's spoilerish, but he decided that with that story and that idea, he could do something. And his number one fear is that someone would come back and say, that was good, but I don't know if it really was Watchmen. And he said, I wanted, because this is such an iconic brand, iconic story, that I wanted to be worthy of that.
Yeah.
So,
One of the things I really like about this, I'm sorry to
no,
interject,
please.
is that it's in the Watchmen universe, but it's not the same story. And I think that really gives him a lot of leeway to make his own property within that world. I think it's ingenious that he does that. And he's definitely pulled in quite a few of the characters from the movie and the comic books. It's so far very well done.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
my only quibble
go
with
ahead.
that is I'm just not sure is this further down the time stream from the original movie graphic novel, or is it an alternate timeline? I'm still wrestling with that. And because it jumps over quite a few time periods, it's mostly from, what is it, early Tulsa,
Yeah,
1912 or whatever it is, so,
1921.
1921 Tulsa up until present day, which is not really never really established exactly when it is.
They do say 2019 a couple of times.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. They
Okay.
reference that
Because they
year.
seem to have like electric cars or
Yeah, I
something
know.
going on. So,
It was altered because of the things that happened. So 2019 there isn't like our 2019.
right.
And also there is a character, and I'm not gonna say anything. I don't know whether you realized it, but there's a character in these episodes that would give away what time period it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it's
Does
a
that make sense?
If it's a Jeremy Irons
Yeah.
character, I understand that it's in the future, but is it
Yep.
the future timeline that we are familiar with, or is this like a Kelvin timeline? I don't know.
Another doorway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the original series happened in around 84, right? And 85.
Yeah, when the book came
Yeah,
out.
yeah. And so that's in 85, October to November. And it is currently roughly, it is what, 2009? No, this late, it's
2019.
yeah.
They actually say
Yeah,
2019.
2019. Yeah, so that's your timeline from when we're seeing the main story and not the other thoughts. So that's how long it's been.
Okay.
Okay.
The one with Angela.
Yeah, Angela Albar. So there's a lot to talk about. So I thought we'd start out with, and by the way, thank you for giving me those backgrounds so everyone else is feeling. I was not aware of this Tulsa riots whatsoever. This was the first I had ever heard of it, and started looking, and this was a real event that happened. There actually is a museum dedicated to this in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to talk about the race riots. And one of the things that Damon Lindelof was inspired by is all of the riots and people having after the Black Lives Matter, and there's all this where there's people rioting, and there was a summon, they're not wearing masks anymore. These people who normally would have had a mask on if they were part of the KKK are not afraid of showing their face now.
Yep.
And so he starts out this very much, and we have a young kid watching a silent film. I was all happy that Bass Reeves, because he had shown up in Timeless.
Yep.
They had talked about that. Very Kryptonian that they're going to say, but it does not work out very well. Karen, let's go through that.
What's the show?
A TV show.
Okay.
And where they traveled back in time. And
each show was about a real person or a real event that happened.
And so
you should watch it.
Yeah, it's really well done.
I did a podcast about it.
Yeah, and they did go back, and Bass Reeves was one of the
episodes,
influences of the Lone Ranger.
Yep.
Yeah,
for real.
That he in actual history,
right?
He was one of the things. Yeah, Karen, let's start out with this.
Let me talk about Tulsa for a second,
please.
My grandmother was the young adult in her teens and living not too far from Tulsa. She was pretty close to being married. My father was born in 1933, and they tried a long time for my dad, and my dad had an older brother. I'm just guessing that she was an older teen. I don't know exactly, but I do remember her telling us about how tumultuous it was during those times, and that she actually took in some people. And I don't have more information than that. Just that there were some people that came and she took them in for the night and fed them, and they left in order not to put them in danger. And that's terrifying, I think, to be that close to something. 300 people, the estimate is 300 people were killed. The whole part of the Black Wall Street in Tulsa was burnt to the ground. If you look at pictures of it, it is rubble. And you are completely right that the white people had no compunction about people knowing who they were, because they were going to destroy everything. Then nothing was going to come back on them. And it's saddening to look back on that part of history and realize, we've evolved from there, but there's still a lot of stuff that hasn't been done. And it's been an entire century since then. But anyway, I thought it was terrifying to see that scene where and his name is Will Reeves, the boy. And that whole part of it where his mother and father put him in the little box and he gets out of it in a field, and he and the baby are the only two survivors of this whole thing. And to realize that maybe 8 years old or something like that, that he's on his own at that point, and he's unaware of everything. He realizes that people died, and so that really hit home for me. I found it poignant and sad, and especially the first part where he's watching the movie of Bass Reeves, and you see his mother, and I'm guessing they were trying to distract him, waiting it out for their father to come and get them. And she's playing the music for the silent film, and she's crying, where her son is jubilant and speaking along with the text and everything. It was just a great way to show what was going on in those times. And obviously, it's nothing that gives us a real insight into what happened. I think it was just like a surface representation of it, but it does make me sad to think that things like that happened in our country. And that it was because a Black man was accused of what catcalling a woman, even though it wasn't true. And that started the entire thing. So
I want to hear your thoughts, Lou, but one of the
yeah.
things that Damon Lindelof mentioned is when he first started wording this, Black Panther had not come out. And he had thought about that if Black Panther, Wakanda, had been real, that there was this society where there was absolutely better technology, better weapons, better things, that many people in a white society would be threatened by that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was an interesting point. So I think we start out immediately. This series is not going to be afraid to be a little political. So Lou, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a interesting approach and one that has to be handled delicately because you don't want to be accused of using a tragedy for just entertainment purposes. And so far, of what we've seen in the first two episodes, I do think it's treating it with the respect that's due for that tragedy. The main thing I was carrying from that was that I assume the boy is her grandfather, Angela Abar's grandfather, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop with the watch over the boy phrase that's on that pamphlet all the time. And I assume that's somehow tied into the Watchmen, or that's where the Watchmen come from. I don't know if they're ever going to directly reference that
Yeah, I don't know
term
either.
in the series or not. So immediately you know that this series is not going to be juvenile take on the superhero genre. This is going to be an adult take, and just based on the Watchmen brand name, you're already going in to expect that. And it would be interesting to see how this series was received across the US, especially in the South, as opposed to the North. And even in other countries like Canada, it'd be interesting to see how it was received in urban areas versus rural areas, things of that demographic breakdown. I'm intrigued off the start, but I also have to admit I'm a little bit off balance trying to figure out how this fits in with this stuff that I'm familiar with. So that is continuing through the first two episodes. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, it engages you emotionally, either positively or off-puttingly, I guess you could say. And I was definitely intrigued as to where it was going, and it was tough to watch, especially at the end with the boy and the baby. And I think we've established who the boy is. Interesting who the baby is. Does he grow up to marry her, or is that Angela's grandmother, or is she off doing something else totally different? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It definitely has that feeling of Last Son of Krypton, where there's then just the boy
Mm-hmm.
and hide this. And then unfortunately, as someone said, in kind elderly couple in Kansas did not find the, the wagon. In fact, they're left all by themselves. So we're left where that is, and we're not sure who the young man is. I think that's a fair guess, Lou, on Karen, about who that grows up to be. we
Can,
then go
can I
to,
mention something since it
sure,
ties in
please.
with Lou's stuff? I'm just looking here at the critical response, and Rotten Tomatoes review aggregator has it at a 96% rating, which is amazing.
Hmm.
But notably, the audience score at one point was a 56% rating because it was review bombed by far right trolls. So that
There you
might
go.
tell
Yeah,
you something about who the audience
Not
was.
surprising at all.
Nope,
yeah. And according to IMDb,
because
they
I am
won,
DB.
yeah, they
Sorry.
had 57 wins
Hmm.
of awards and 82 nominations.
Golden Globes and
Yeah,
things like that.
Saturn, Emmys, Critics' Choice, the Directors Guild of America Emmys. Jeremy Irons won lead actor in a miniseries. Outstanding limited series was that I'm sorry, Jeremy was a nominee. So was you. We haven't seen Jovan Adepo yet, but he was on there. Lou Gossett Jr. was nominated, and the one who plays Cal, which is her husband,
Husband?
yeah, he won an Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor.
Hmm.
Gene Smart, we haven't seen yet, was a nominee. Regina King actually won for lead actress. Yeah, this was a very prestigious episode miniseries that won, and that's funny because it's genre, and that often doesn't win awards, but it
Anything.
was. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's funny that HBO canceled it after all of those awards were won. I always scratch my head over that one.
And there was a little bit because Damon Lindelof said that he had the one idea to tell a story.
Right.
And so they put everything they wanted to in this story. And he said, I don't want to do a second season just because I've signed up to do a second season. He said, I would love more stories in this world. And I'm hoping that someone else will have a story idea they can do this. So I think it's a matter of they wanted another season, but he and did not want to sign up to do a second season just because we need you to come a season story first.
Okay.
Yeah. So
It's fair
there,
enough.
yeah. All right. So we then get I know I was really surprised when I watched this first time, is the police stopping them wearing a mask, the whole tenseness of that, and the whole idea that you had to get approval to draw your gun. And our police officer ends up getting killed or shot, not
Yeah.
killed yet. And we end up getting a scene where Jude Crawford is we know now is the police chief, is watching Oklahoma and has
An
to
all
go because
black cast, which I
yeah,
loved, by the way.
yeah, Black Oklahoma, and they
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. It was just charming.
Hmm.
So let's talk about that. One of my favorite scenes was he liked you, and he corrected the widow, the wife of the police officer. No, he likes me, as
Hmm.
in he is still alive. We are not going to give up. Lou, let's start with you there. Just this anything about the police, the shooting, Black Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's you're in an alternate reality, though I assume that there probably has been all black cast Oklahoma productions done in our world as well. But it's just establishing the world a bit more. Don Johnson, and I think I mentioned this off camera last time we were together, is that it's definitely aging gracefully. The guy still looks pretty good. Looks like he could step back into the set of Miami Vice with no problem, to be honest.
Right?
Um, and he's a very interesting character, especially when we get to the reveal at the end of the episode. He comes across as a champion of justice in that, but he's definitely got a couple of foibles that are very interesting. And it's just visually the scene with the cop pulling the guy over for speeding or whatever. When he's pulling on his mask and that, you're thinking like, oh, this guy's a vigilante or something like that. And then it's not until later on that you realize that this has become the standard practice for police officers because of something that we see later on in this episode as well. As I mentioned, the key word for me is off balance. This episode is keeping me off balance, and I'm still trying to find my footing in it. That's probably intentional on the part of the showrunners because they want you to get out of your preconceived view of the world. So from that perspective, it's working quite well. And yeah, it's just really well shot. And I think they had Trent Reznor is doing the music score for this. So I'm really digging the music score as well as the episode's going along. But yeah, it's again that opening sequence is just opening scenes are just keeping you off balance and just fleshing out the world in very interesting and unique ways.
Aaron?
Yeah, I'll mention the music as well. I love the score that it sets tones very well. I think Trent did a great job. Mr. Reznor. I shouldn't call him Trent like I know him. But also I enjoyed that they used real music and okay, that's not right. Music that was already made. What am I saying here? Established songs, yes.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is from the second episode, and it's called Ball of Confusion, and that's what the world is today. It's such a great song, and it really does play into what's happening on screen, and it's just very cool. Even the fact that they carry the music from Oklahoma through different parts where they show that Judd played Curly in his depiction at some point. Just a side note, I played Aunt Eller in Oklahoma at my high school, and I know all the music. So I still know all the music. So it was cool to sing along with that stuff. The music is very good in Oklahoma, by the way. So especially I'm Just a Girl That Can't Say No. It's a good song. But I loved how he brought that into the dinner party. And like Lou said, he's looking real good. I'm shocked at how young he looks. And I think he's become a much better actor as he ages. I was not a fan of his, not that I hated him or anything, but I just wasn't a fan of his in the whole Miami Vice era. But I do think that he's become a more learned actor. He becomes his role instead of just acting. And I really appreciated that. I was sad to see what happened to him at the end of the episode. And normally I would just be, yeah, whatever, it's Don Johnson, let's get him off the screen. But in this, I wanted to see him again. And knowing that he's not going to be a big part, even if they do flashbacks, that was sad to me. And the part where we see that whole scene where the policeman pulls over the Klansman, and I guess Cavalry with a K is playing into the KKK thing. Is that okay? When he pulls over the member of the cavalry, it really shows us a lot of the story. The fact that the police wear masks, and that's a direct interpolation. Yeah, interpolation, that from where it was a little bit talked about in the book that the people with superpowers had to wear masks in order to not be attacked in real life. And so they've broadened that to include any authority figure that's going after the Klansmen. And it does set up a lot of that, not being able to use the gun, what the police are for, how they pull people over, how they're trying to get information. And it really does inform a lot about what comes later. And I'm sure later in the show as well.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that he was rolling his eyes that it was Panda. And we see Panda later is actually the character wearing a panda head and arguing, no, we can't. He's quoting the regulations.
Yeah.
And the idea that this young policeman was in fear of his life. And I thought it was a nice twist that normally if you're going to have a stop and a police officer, the driver can be very nervous about him. And to have this twist the other way, I thought was well done. And I want to talk, it wasn't like Sean Beam dying in Game of Thrones.
Right.
Shocking, but it was a little bit surprising. Wait a minute, why are we? I mean, Don Johnson, because he was very charming. I loved the idea, of course he can sing, right?
Right.
This guy can do everything. And he did. He sounded wonderful. And it appeared for all, at least outward, he adored that family.
Yep.
He was
And I think he
close.
did.
Yeah, I think he adored her. He adored the three kids. If we jump to the second episode, we find out that um, they were her partner's children
Hmm.
that she and her husband adopted after the White Night, which is Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, where the cavalry attacked every police officer, killed many of them, and we saw the police chief, Don Johnson, Jed, is talking to, and he says, everyone's resigning. And she goes, I'm not. And he goes, I guess I'm not either. And they had that bond,
Hmm.
right? That Judd and her, which I think is a really, in 2 episodes, we get the idea she adored him,
Hmm.
trusted him. And then we get the reveal that I remember being shocked of, that he had a KKK uniform, and jumping ahead
Hmm.
because I was like, okay, was this like his grandfather's? So he still had that just out of memory of his grandfather. But wait, why would you do that? Wait a minute, he's the good guy. Judd is the one that is pushing and helping. What's going on about that? Lou, any thoughts on that? That twist, what did you feel about when you saw it?
I'll come back to being off balance. Like,
Yeah,
when I saw that, I was going like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" And my first thought was yours. Is that his grandfather's maybe or something?
yeah.
It's now my mind is turning all these story possibilities. Was he a plant that was like the inside guy for the Seventh Cavalry? The fact that he was snorting coke also was weird, and he's pretty careless about it. In that Angela sees that he's still got some powder on his nose, and she's also seems to be okay with that. Maybe in this world, drug use is not as a big a issue as it would be in our world. So I'm off balance trying to process that. And if he is a KKK person, why did the Seventh Cavalry? I'm assuming that's who did it, even though Angela's grandfather seems to want to take credit for it for some reason. I don't know why. Again, I'm off balance because of that. A guy in a wheelchair hung somebody. Like, how does that happen? But yeah, so there's all this off-putting stuff going on, and we haven't even talked about Jeremy, how weird that stuff is. But the core of it is still comes down to the fact that that dinner scene was delightful. It really established the rapport of all those characters. And the actress who plays his wife is another staple. She's one of those character actors that you see in a lot of TV series all the time. I don't know her name off the top of my head. Frances Farmer. Thanks, Karen. I knew you'd call that up for me.
Yeah.
I've seen her in a ton of stuff. So the rapport and closeness of this family is, and then when I say family, I'm talking about not just Angela's family, but all of them, is all very interesting. And there seems to be something with the oldest kid that's got the long black hair.
Topher.
It's
Yeah.
almost like
Yeah.
he's I feel like he's going to be a Watchman in some form, whether that the time period of the series is going to cover that or not. But he's definitely got something different about him as opposed to the younger kids. He's pretty aware of what's going on. It almost feels like he's a man trapped in a kid's body in some ways. So so there's a lot going on in these 2 episodes that are just keeping me off balance, and I'm still trying to get a handle on exactly where this show is going. Like all the cops, for the most part, the duty officers all seem to be black, unless I missed because so much is going on. That's interesting. Yet then you also have these guys like the Russian guy who's all dressed in like a red tracksuit, and then he's got the
Yeah.
red ski mask. It's weird. Is he a cop or is he like what is he? Is he just a vigilante? And I was really thrown when the one guy in Nixonville, which is a great name for
Hmm.
the village, says you're a what did he say? I can't remember what he called him, but he says no, I'm a communist. Not I can't remember what he called him.
Oh,
He says no, I'm a communist, not a instead of
fascist?
fascist, maybe.
Yeah.
He says I'm a
Yeah.
communist. So the symbology of that is interesting. And then the show keeps pulling in these elements, like we get the owl vehicle,
Mhm.
the flying vehicle as well. And then yeah, I'm just rambling, pulling in different
No.
things. But the stuff with the cows was very disturbing.
It was that they're
Yeah.
getting all
And
killed.
those
Yeah,
batteries for the what the heck were they doing with that for the from the watches? Um,
exactly.
Hmm.
but yeah, there's like I said, there's just a lot of stuff going on here, and it's just I'm hoping that it's not going to be serious where I'm not going to pull all the pieces together until the last episode. I'm hoping maybe by the third or fourth episode things are going to start to fall into place. And we've got this whole thing with Lou Gossett's character as well, who pulled up that car with the magnet. Like,
Yeah,
His friends
so
in high
weird.
places.
He sure does.
yeah,
They're in high places.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I love how he says things too, where he says he's got skeletons in his closet, and he actually means in his closet.
Yeah.
right.
Friends in high places, and he means in high places. I just love how obtuse and clear he is at the same time. His
Yeah,
character is really good.
the interesting right where he is. I'm the guy who killed your chief. That's he keeps saying that.
Hmm.
It's no, you couldn't have.
Yeah.
The and we get this whole where I love Angela and Lou. This is my I think this is canon, but my thought is when you become a detective, instead of how in our world you start wearing a suit instead
Hmm.
of a uniform, well, in this world you come up with your own costume,
Oh,
whether
okay.
you're Jane the pirate or the scary messes or Looking Gas or Sister
Or wear a
Night.
badass coat.
Yeah.
I love
And
that coat.
yeah. And I love the idea of her painting her face and the go putting together. There is a lot of, and she talked about, right, that she was born in Vietnam, and what in this universe, Vietnam is the 51st state that you catch because you'll see there's a scene where the flag now has a circle of stars because there's 51 states.
Oh, that's cool.
You also saw that Redford has been president for a while.
Is that Robert?
Uh, yes, that
Yeah.
is Robert Redford.
Okay,
Yes.
instead of Ronald Reagan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
instead of Ronald Reagan. Yes.
Okay.
And there's
And
no term limits, right?
there is no term limit. So that's how President Nixon had been president for a long time, and now Robert Redford. So there had been a very conservative, now a very liberal. They explain what the Redford nations, the room, basically this compensation for how what the
Oh, the
government has
Redford or whatever.
patients.
Yeah.
And I did love the idea. He's not a white supremacist yet, but he's one in building. There is a lot of this show is about race,
Hmm.
and I don't think they're going to shy away from it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty
Yeah,
evident.
Hmm.
yeah,
Also, we can't make Puerto Rico or Guam states, but we managed to make Vietnam a state.
yes, exactly.
Why can't it
Uh,
be the 54th state
yeah,
instead?
don't know. Yeah, we did get
Or Washington, D.C., sorry.
yeah, there is a little bit of humor. Looking Glass when he says, "Put your mask down so he can adjust his tie." The idea of they established that had anyone told that you're a police officer? Oh, no, I wouldn't have done that. It's against the rules. And he goes, no, it's okay. Anything else we need to talk about before we go to our Lord of a Country estate? Anything else in this kind of thought? We've got,
The
uh,
pod and the
yeah,
guy with
they've
the mirror mask.
Yeah, that
yeah,
guy's
I guess
pretty daunting.
he's supposed to be the Rorschach of this group
yeah,
because all the K guys are wearing Rorschach masks. Oh, we also have the Christmas night. You mentioned the White Knight attack,
yeah.
but we don't know who saved her. I assume
Mm-mm.
it was her husband. I don't know, but because she was down and the guy was going to blow her away, and then it cut to Don Johnson with her in the hospital. So that's I don't know if that's deliberate and that we're going to fill that in later, but and the fact that you said that her husband, the actor that played her husband, gets an Emmy nod is interesting to me because I had pigeonholed him as just sort of like a character to
Yeah.
her
Yeah, same.
her arc. So that's going to be interesting to see what parts he plays going forward. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just
It,
say,
please.
we were talking about Topher, and he's seen some shit. He is the oldest of the siblings, and I think he was old enough to understand what was happening. And so he carries that a weight.
yeah.
And I do
Yeah.
think he is older than his years. Definitely.
His line where he says "cops die,"
Yep.
that was chilling.
Same. That
and
scene between them where
Yeah.
he's playing with the
Glass house.
Legos, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, the metal glass or whatever. Yeah.
That I thought that was so impactful.
Mhm.
The fact that they were talking to each other.
And I love the idea that she says, you and I know life isn't rainbows and
Yep.
lollipops.
Yep.
And cops die, don't tell, and he names his sisters. And then, can I watch TV? Right?
Yep.
Like,
But we see him, he destroys what he was working on, which shows that he still has a bit of that anger inside of him. And I really enjoyed also the scene at the school where the kid is definitely on his way to being a racist, like you said, and Topher jumps him because he doesn't tolerate that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And even though he's reprimanded in the car by Angela, I think she considers him not quite an equal, but they're bonded because of the things they've been through.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Also, a lot of homages at the very end. The blood hitting the badge is definitely the Watchmen smiley face. The eggs having a smiley face when she's talking about making the cookies.
Yeah.
This bakery that she's going to open sometime soon, which is really just her version of the Bat Cave.
Yeah.
And
her Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, and I like the idea, right, that Looking Glass is saying, "Why am I crying under this?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, an interesting scene. He doesn't take his mask off at his house.
Yeah.
When he's watching this American Hero story, which is similar to the American Horror Story or American Justice Story, these different series that are different mini series we have in our world that are different stories they tell. So that's what I get the feeling this is. And that is very much telling the story of the original Hooded Justice and all these other characters that were in the original series.
And we've seen, in that vein, we've seen that there's also a Dr. Manhattan documentary that's a different thing. And where they do have the splatter, the blood splatter on the happy face, we've also seen a lot of clocks, which is also a big deal in the Watchmen.
Tick-tock.
Yep.
Yeah. And you'll notice eggs are going to be a reoccurring discussion. The eggs making it, he ate boiled eggs. You'll see a lot of eggs are covered as a reoccurring theme, which is
some hard boiled.
Yeah.
Just reaches into the pot.
I love this. Why we weren't finished talking yet. Like he's not worried. I'm not.
Why didn't you arrest me then?
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
The whole pod I thought was a really interesting. The questions of what to ask, what to do, the idea of how far do you push civil rights? How far do you push to get things? There are more questions, there are answers during these first two episodes. All right, so we don't know the name of the Lord of a Country Estate.
I think we do, but
yes, yeah, but it is spoilers. There is a scene where it says Adrian Vett is officially declared dead. There was a newspaper scene, not spoilers. This is him.
Yeah.
Which is the guy
Ozymandias.
Yes.
Yep.
Older. We don't know where he's at. We don't know when he's at. One of the things that I picked up after watching it multiple times is when they give him the cake, there is one candle. Episode 2, there is 2 candles, which to imply it's been 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, it's been a year where he started working on the play. He's now doing a play. We've established that Mr. Phillips and Miss Crookshanks are, it looks like some kind of clones or something. Yeah. Karen, let's start with you. Any thoughts on the Jeremy Irons character?
Yeah, I pegged him right away because of the setting. That's very Ozymandias to have a big mansion and he's the only one in it. And I don't know if he's created these clones or if they're a creation of something else, but I think it's very cool. The prestige of the movie, The Prestige, where he clones himself, Is that the movie where he clones himself to do the magic trick? I
Oh
don't
yeah, I
remember.
think it is. Yes, it
Okay.
is. Yeah.
And every time he does the trick, another version of him dies. So I think it's cool. I think it's a version of that where every time he's going to do this play, another Phillips is going to die. And then he's resurrected, but it's really another clone. I love that he's poking fun at Dr. Manhattan by writing this play the way he does. We know there's no love lost between the two of them, definitely. And he, through his actions, he made Dr. Manhattan do a lot of things he didn't want to do in The Watchmen. And so I'm wondering if we're going to see any of that, all the things that carry on from his actions. We know he's very reactionary and he's in self-exile somewhere, I'm assuming, because he seems very set apart from everything. I love seeing Tom Meissen. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, to be fair. I also did a podcast about Sleepy Hollow. So seeing him in this was very cool. He's so attractive. Pardon me, but I had Jeffrey Dean Morgan in the movie, and now I have
Yes.
Tom Meissen as Mr. Phillips, and getting to see him cloned.
Oh, that's a guy?
Yeah.
Really?
He's
I
clean
didn't make that
shaved.
connection.
Clean
Yeah.
shaved. I
Clean
didn't
shaved,
connect
Yeah.
him either.
And
Yeah.
short hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's pretty cute. I enjoyed
Blue
seeing
penis.
that. Yeah, exactly. Big time. That was, although it was blue, so it's not really. I just listened to a book about orcs and women, blue guys and women.
Okay.
Whatever. There's plenty of romance novels with aliens and
Mm.
humans, but it's a whole genre, like werewolves and stuff. But I enjoyed those scenes. They were definitely, they showed just them, the woman and the man, Crookshank and Phillips, very happy. And they're like bringing him clothes and cleaning his legs and all kinds of stuff. We only see one of each at that point, but they seem very wooden. So I thought they're androids or something. And then we see that they're clones. So there's something unnatural about them. And him doing that play. And of course, the symbolism of the watch, the clock face, and it stopping. And then he taps it and it restarts. So it's got a lot of symbolism that's carried over from the book. Those scenes in particular, I thought were weird, but also that string that ties them back to the original Watchmen was cool.
Yeah, I thought like when they handed him a horseshoe, right? Because they're not quite there.
Yeah.
And
That is a horseshoe. I'm
yes,
sorry, sir.
yeah, and the idea of it, whoever the clone is, it does feel like they feel pain
Yeah.
because when they blow it up, they are screaming, and Mrs. Crankshaft looks to be concerned. And then, do you want to be the new Mr. Phillips? Sure. Was very interesting.
I think I might be turning down that offer if I remember.
Yeah, like nope, I'm done.
Right?
And we do get to see the male genitals.
Okay.
Which
Do we
was
need
famous.
to continue to talk about this?
I'm just saying
I know.
It was part of the comic book, and
hopefully we'll see boobs later on because let's be in all this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
This whole section was, again, very off balancing for me, but the one aspect I could really appreciate is that Jeremy Irons is, at least for what they've done so far, is perfectly cast as this character because they're really mining his cinematic background. He's been in a lot of movies and period pieces and that. So him riding that horse and that totally fits his character. And then there's the sexual perversion stuff that he's done, like Dead Ringers and Lolita and things like that. Like when he's sitting at the typewriter naked and he's rubbing his thigh and that. And I go, yeah, this is Jeremy Irons.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the kind of role. Quintessential Jeremy Irons.
Yep.
But the only thing I didn't understand, and because the implication is that they've done this play quite a few times, and you mentioned the 1-2 candle thing. So when do they reset it? Is it going to be reset next episode or probably not? But
yeah,
so it's weird. And why do they make these cakes to begin with, and they mentioned something
Right.
about, was it honeycomb or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
It's the
get that.
honeycomb you brought us.
Yeah.
And it can't taste good, right?
Where these clones are coming from is
Right.
also,
Exactly.
yeah. So very
Does he
weird.
have a like
But
a
I'm waiting for the other
3D
shoe to drop.
printer?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the other
Yeah.
shoe to drop in that whole storyline, and whether or
Same.
not they're going to cross these original Watchmen characters with the newer Watchmen characters is also something, because Dr. Manhattan, is he immortal? I don't remember, but he's somewhere, and Ozymandias is there. I don't know how many of the original Watchmen are still alive. Probably most of them are dead, I would think.
Not the
So
comedian,
yeah, the comedian is dead.
not
Rorschach is
Rorschach.
dead.
Yeah.
When the series ended, we had the Lori, right?
Hmm. The
And
owl,
yeah, and the owl, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Dr.
Lori Blake.
Manhattan,
Yeah,
Ozymandias.
yeah,
Yeah.
Lori Blake, and then whoever I can't remember the Owlman name, the second Owlman.
Right.
Yeah, yes,
They stole the ship, apparently.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The a
Or
little
or
bit.
maybe it's a duplicate, because maybe that
Yeah,
magnet was on the original
Mm.
L ship. I
yeah.
don't know.
And you wonder perhaps was the idea that they took those owl ship plans and was able to sell them to police officers, police departments across the same way you could sell certain things. Yeah.
Like tanks and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. Anything else we need to discuss?
You mentioned off the top you love the episode titles, and while I think they're cool, I have no idea what the hell they mean.
Same. They're
Yeah.
weird.
So the first one is a lyric from Oklahoma, right?
Okay.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, because you hear them sing that at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made that connection, but I just don't know. Is that the only
Yeah.
thing we're supposed to take away from it?
Just
Yeah.
a fun thing
Yeah.
that
And then
happened in the
the
episode.
marital feats of Comanche horsemanship is that
Marshall.
The painting.
is that painting. Yeah,
Yeah.
martial feats of Comanche
Yeah.
horsemanship.
But
Yes.
again, but what does that have to do with the episode?
I think it's like when we grade something and we just put something in there, like so many horseshoes or whatever. I think it might be that. It's just mentioning something cool from the episode. At least that's what I got from it. I don't know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's fair. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Anything else? So you've talked
Nope.
about questions. I thought any other questions you might have, Karen, Lou, either one of you that you haven't brought up yet that you're wondering about?
Yeah, what's
I-
the deal with Cal? That's
Yeah.
one of my questions. He seems to be a question mark for me. Why does he stay home with the kids all the time?
Yeah.
Is there a reason why he doesn't ever really go outside? He didn't answer the door. Have we seen him outside? Maybe once in these 2 episodes.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
yeah. So he goes outside, but he's sequestered,
Mhm.
as it were. So what's the deal with him?
we get the actor who plays the grandfather of the kids.
Oh, the hick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Jim Beaver.
Yeah, Jim Beaver, great actor from Supernatural.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the idea, I'll take a real check
Yeah.
that, and
So he
you
doesn't
wonder-
care about the kids.
No.
He's just trying to assert his right
Yeah.
to see and to say, hey, I know you're black, but I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I'll put you down as much as I want.
Hmm.
I have rights. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
there is this resentment of people getting government handouts.
Yep.
They call that reparations, but they call it
Red-
reparations.
Red
Yes.
furations. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And the whole idea that, because I couldn't figure out why she gave him, and I do think, God, that cup must have tasted horrible,
Yeah.
right? Because you've had all these ink pens in there, and
Yeah. I
know,
thought
so
she was
there-
doing it for fingerprints, but yeah.
yeah, but no, the
I think
DNA.
she might be. Oh, the DNA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she took that DNA and was able to figure that out. Okay.
Yeah.
That was an
There-
interesting scene, by
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah.
So she finds out her grandfather is qualified to get these red furations.
Yeah.
Redford,
Yeah.
whatever.
Also want to know what happened to the baby girl.
Same.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And Karen mentioned the husband and that kid, the older kid. What's going
Yeah,
on with him?
Topher. Yeah.
And I want to know,
I like
what-
Topher so far.
yeah, the detectives, especially the red guy. I don't know what his name is in the show, but yeah. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, and if, like I said, if some of these original Watchmen characters are going to come back in, and if how Jeremy Irons' path is going to cross with any of these characters as well.
His name is the Red Scare.
The Red Scare, the Red Skull,
Yes.
the Red Scare.
Yes.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's cool. So we have
Yeah.
Sister
And I'm
Night,
sure
Looking Glass.
next 2 episodes will you give us even more questions and hopefully some answers,
Same.
since it's only
Absolutely.
9 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, next week we will be talking about she was killed by space junk. And if you don't like my story, write your own.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I'm happy we're watching this.
Yeah. I'm glad to be
Yeah.
watching it. Very intriguing.
I am too. Yes. Do we want to rate the first couple episodes, or we just want to keep
Nah.
talking about it?
I think we're good.
Yeah. It's too
Okay,
early.
I
It's
think
too
so
early.
too.
I think this is a series that you can't rate until you see the final episode.
I agree. And I also will tell you that this is a series that it does reveal, much like the comic book or the trade paperback, on multiple viewings or multiple readings, it does things that you didn't see the first
I'm
time.
sure. Yeah.
So
You guys
that's
brought
good.
up a couple of points that I didn't realize.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I think
So
we're going to do that as we go. I'm
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
pick up stuff. You're going to pick up stuff, all that kind of, and we'll inform each other of them.
Yeah, which is cool.
yeah, absolutely.
And just to put the baseline down, we're going to watch 2 episodes each time that we talk, except
Yes.
for we're leaving the 9th episode to be its own.
Absolutely.
And then
Right.
we'll plus our overall.
And then our thoughts. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. If someone wants to reach you, how can they, Lou?
You can check out the YouTube, the Lou's Reviews, where you'll find episodes of JKLMedia, where we're covering right now Watchmen. We've also done Devs, Midnight Mass, and a whole bunch of other really cool.
The English, let's
The
not
English,
skip the
yeah,
English.
an overlooked series for sure.
Mhm.
Emily Blunt is fantastic in that one. And also have writer interviews there and a Stephen King podcast. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma, Sytsma.
Karen?
I am at Oliveria on the various social medias, and my blog is alliestuff.com.
And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter, aka X, and you can hear me talking music on Set Lusting Bruce. Perfectly Good podcast, and you can hear us every week, pretty much, talking Babylon 5 on Last Best Of for Conversation, and also Next Stop Everywhere with Charles and I talking Doctor Who. Thank you guys so much. If you have thoughts, you can send us an email. And that email address, as
JKLB5podcast@gmail.com.
Yes, we would love to get some feedback on Watchmen, your thoughts on it, when you originally watched it, or if this is your first time seeing it, join us on this journey.
Sure, watch along with us and tell us
Yes.
if we've missed anything.
Yes, and remember to ask who watches The Watchmen. Goodbye.
Bye.
Take care. And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.